Ladies and gentlemen, my name is TotalBiscuit. I'm here to ask and answer one simple question. WTF is Chroma Squad? It is, as it says on the screen, assuming you can read that through the scan lines, inspired by Saban's Power Rangers. It's a tactical RPG where you play a bunch of fake Power Rangers, essentially. I believe it's called Super Sentai or something along those lines in Japanese. I'm not 100% familiar with it, I gotta be honest with you. I am familiar enough with Power Rangers, though. That was a show that I wasn't allowed to watch as a child because it was too violent. That's just the reality of it. There's a lot of kicking and punching and, you know, solving problems through violence. It's just how it is. Some of us had overprotective parents, at least for a while anyway. I was like 9. They did kind of get past that point fairly quickly. Anyway, Chroma Squad, what's it all about? Who's it by? It's by a company called Behold. They created games such as Knights of Pen and Paper, which was an interesting crossover. And they do the same sort of thing here, where they deliberately break the fourth wall and they mix real-life stuff with kind of gamey stuff, in keeping with the theme of the actual game itself. And just like Knights of Pen and Paper, they mostly get it right, and then there are some parts that don't really make a great deal of sense in terms of the game world. There's that phrase ludonarrative dissonance, which is frequently misused, but I think that it is frequently a problem in the games that Behold makes, because you're trying to figure out what the rules of the world are in relation to what's real and what isn't, and it's generally very inconsistent. But let's be honest, you can probably work your way past that because it is an RPG about Power Rangers. So let's jump in. It's not just an RPG about Power Rangers, it's an RPG about running a studio where you create a Power Ranger-style show. So you have 5 actors, some of them are running off in the background there for whatever reason, and those actors can transform using costumes that you've built, which are generally made out of things like cardboard and plastic and fake props and so on and so forth, and you're putting together episodes of a show, but you're doing it by fighting in a tactical RPG and attempting to complete various objectives to raise your audience level, which will mean that you get more cash, more fan power, and that allows you to get better stuff. So let's have a look at the shop here. You'll see that there's various item levels, green, blue, and purple there. So if I wanted to buy some elite boots, for instance, I could do that. Let's purchase, buy, and equip there. On TotalBiscuit, my main character, we have Jenna here, Krendor. Of course it looks like Krendor. That's what Krendor looks like in real life, yeah, nobody realized. There's Jesse, and there's Dodger. Probably should have swapped those around, but you can't actually change the name, which is unfortunate once you've picked your actors, but never mind. So you just pick from a selection of weird actors. There's male, female, there's animals, there's robots, aliens, all sorts of things. And they will transform into their Power Ranger counterparts, and each of them has a role. So the techie is more of a ranged gadget guy. That's your lead fellow who can do a bunch of leadership-based buffs. Your Assault, who is the one that's probably going to be doing the most damage. Your Scout, who can move the quickest and is the most acrobatic. And your Assist, who has heals and so on and so forth. So you can either buy stuff from this list of gear, all of which is sort of oddly done, let's just put it that way. If we go all the way down to something like this pistol is made of plastic. There's a broom here that you can equip. I actually have that right now, I think. Or you can craft it through drops, and you can also buy these packs with in-game money. There's no microtransactions in this game, which give you a bunch of drops, and these drops can be used to craft various things. So if I wanted to craft something, I'd go through this list, see what I could craft. Do I have the materials? Hey, here's a piece of plastic, here's a piece of silver tape. I can use it to make a bucket helmet, and so on and so forth. And you're going to want to keep upgrading your heroes the further you go into the game, because the episodes are going to get a little bit tougher. As to why there are 2 Krendors in the background, and let's just not ask. Let's just not ask. There's a bunch of other stuff you can do as well, like you can hire a marketing department, so there's a management element to this game. So you manage your money, you can hire an agency which will allow you to boost various characteristics, like you'll be able to get more fan conversion, you'll be able to convert fans to cash and all that kind of stuff. You can even upgrade your studio with better cameras and a better green screen, which will give you in-game buffs. So, very similar to the way Knights of Pen and Paper did it. It's like, hey, if you have a pizza, you somehow inexplicably get a buff in the combat, which makes little sense. I mean, if you get the lighting, for instance, you reduce the chance of enemy dodge and counter. Just don't think about it too heavily, okay? It doesn't make any actual sense in terms of the game logic, and that's why I was mentioning earlier there's a bit of sort of ludonarrative dissonance going on between the two, but I think you can just kind of ignore that. You can even do things like customize your catchphrases, and it became abundantly clear that I don't actually have any catchphrases, as you can see. I tried to come up with a few. I'm like, hang on a minute, I don't really have any of those. It's probably for the best. I'd rather be known for, I don't know, talking sense. You can also customize your giant mecha, which you get at some point, and this is there's a little bit less customization involved here than with your main characters. You can do things like, you can upgrade the arms to give you more combo damage and so on and so forth. I could do that right now, in fact, if I wanted to. Let's craft that new arm, and then you can just keep upgrading. We could get an aerodynamic arm if we so desire, but we've currently got this one equipped. Could upgrade the chest piece, for instance, to give it extra defense. There we go. Cool. And it also actually gives me abilities as well. Occasionally you'll get to fight with the mecha, and hopefully I'll get to show you that. It's a little mini-game that's separate to the main tactical RPG. You've also got your actors here, which have a bunch of skills which you can equip depending on which season of the show you're in, and this is a list of your equipment. I do have some criticisms in regards to this, by the way. For instance, all this equipment stuff, I think it should be put together with the shop and the crafting in particular, because it's a little bit difficult to keep track of what your different actors actually have. So I can look at this as like, hey, yeah, this is cool, but then if I head to the shop and I'm thinking about buying something, I don't know which actor has which suit, so I've got to kind of click through them and check whether or not there's a stats upgrade for each of them. It's a little bit fiddly, a little bit unnecessarily fiddly as far as I'm concerned. I think they could have probably put all of those things together. They could have had a crafting tab, and they could have had a shop tab here, and combine this and give you a proper equipment list and so on and so forth there. That would make sense, but unfortunately they didn't. Alright. Let's jump into the actual game itself. So, you get to record episodes, and each of these episodes have director's instructions, which you have to follow. Usually there's a few stages to each level, and they'll each have different instructions, and you're looking to max out your audience as high as you can get it. And the best way to do that is by doing effective team attacks and acrobatics, and killing monsters, but also by following the instructions of the director. So, if I click over here, I'll find out eventually what the first one is. Perform 3 team acrobatics and defeat 4 enemies with the lead character. Okay, we shall do that. So we're going to go jump into this. And don't worry, the CRT effects do disappear after a while. I just got them in the cutscenes and in the loading screens there. And you've got a lot of dialogue here. Now, if I was to criticize something, I think it would be very subjectively. I'd say the dialogue is extremely corny in many ways. But I also think that it does fit in with the general theme of the game. We'll be talking a great deal about the theme, because I think it's the strongest element of the game. But the dialogue is extremely corny. There's no real doubt about that. They're sort of shoving some bits about friendship, bits about gender equality, you know, that kind of thing. And some people kind of got their backs up at that. But honestly, I think it fits, because if you look at the history of things like Power Rangers and shows like that, they often have morals and messages because they were aimed at kids. So the point is, they've integrated morals and messages into the game as well. So it doesn't feel out of place. If it feels ham-fisted, it's because all the dialogue is deliberately ham-fisted, as you would imagine from a Power Ranger-style show. I mean, nobody claimed that Power Rangers was a magnanimously fantastic piece of incredible literature, did they? Absolutely not. It's not going to go down in history for that reason, and a lot of the Japanese Sentai shows weren't either. So yeah, you expect the cheese, and you expect the weird moral messaging, because that fits in with the theme of the game. So I'm not going to criticize it for that, but I've got to be honest, there are at times when I'm just cringing at the dialogue a little bit, but that's a personal problem, you know? That's not an objective criticism. I mean, it's designed that way, and it fits with the theme, so it really is just the fact that I guess I'm 30 years old, and I didn't really grow up with these shows. I think if you grew up with these shows, you'd maybe appreciate that level of nostalgia a little bit more. Alright, so this is the tactical RPG part of the game, whereby you are beating up various enemies. There aren't a huge number of enemies in this game, and in fact they tend to reuse the same enemies with reskins more often than not, which you could again argue is kind of thematic, but simultaneously it's a little bit unfortunate that that happens to be the case. So I can move my characters around. I can use the teamwork ability to either do team attacks or to perform team acrobatics. So let's say I want to get my assault nice and close to this well-made shell shield. I'm going to do that, and she's going to flip over. That's going to give her additional range, which is going to allow her to get in nice and close and beat the living crap out of that nasty turtle thing. Alternatively, I can do a team attack. It's asking me to kill 4 enemies with my lead, so if I do this team attack, that counts as 1. There we go. And once the team attack is done, your teamwork buff will cease. Now, you might notice there's a button down there that says Snarkify. It's going to say whatever you want it to say. I set it to Snarkify because I could not think of anything better because I'm horribly unoriginal. But once you've gained enough audience power, you're able to transform into your Power Rangers form, essentially. And that's when you unlock all of your skills and all of your weapons. As it stands, you're just sort of fighting with your basic characters who... Oh, whoa, 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 whoa. This is getting a little bit dicey. You know, I was going to talk about the difficulty, and then suddenly I almost lost a character. So I think it's because the difficulty just spiked after getting through a season. So I imagine that's got quite a lot to do with it. All right, going to move in here. I'm going to set up a teamwork attack, and I'll use my lead to kill this off, which should hopefully give me enough audience power to transform. But as it turns out, it is not. It looks like we need 500 audience power to transform. Okay, we can do that. That's fine. Set up a teamwork attack here, which is also going to give me a minor piece of healing. There's the teamwork. That knocks that out. So close. We'll go for one more attack, and then we can transform. And that's knocked him out. And there we go. So once this is over, we'll be able to transform into our Power Rangers form. Give us a bunch of skills, and it makes the combat a hell of a lot more fun. It also brings everyone together. So it's a nice little way of moving your team together and healing them back up to full. So there we go. And then they've transformed in. And you'll notice that the costumes are nice and gnarly. If you change your helmet, it's going to look a little bit different, which I thought was a particularly neat feature. There's not a great deal of visual customization going on. I think it really is just the helmet. But they look cheesy enough, I've got to say. All right, let's move forward a little bit here, and we can set up our teamwork play. Probably want to do the same with this, actually. I could also bring all of my heroes together by doing this. Can I lasso from here? No, I can't. Alright, we're going to use join up to bring everyone together. There we go. Means everyone moves in, and then we can set up teamwork, and we can probably go in for a little bit of damage here. So you can see I've unlocked some skills which are basically cooldown based, and also based on the sort of weapons and styles that you're going for here. And this is how the tactical combat works. It is reasonably simple, honestly. There's nothing particularly complicated about the tactical combat. If you've ever played a tactics RPG, you know exactly what you're doing here. And you don't really need to worry too much about anything complicated showing up. If you're looking for a level of complexity, that's perhaps where some of the disappointment may come from, simply because you're probably not going to find that there. I'm just going to set up for a teamwork because I need to get my lead character in closer. There we go. He's nice and low, so I should be able to knock him out. If you're looking for complexity and tactical depth, there's not a great deal of it. It's almost sort of like Babby's first tactics RPG, really. But that's not necessarily a bad thing, and I'm going to say why. And that's because I think that the element of the game which just far exceeds everything else, which makes everything just seem absolutely fantastic, is the theme. Now, if you're into board gaming a lot, you probably hear the term theme used a great deal when it comes to board game reviews. Good reason for that is because a lot of board games are simply mechanics with a theme layered over them. And a lot of board games are actually quite similar in that respect. It's like, hey, this is about the same as this, but it's using, say, a Star Trek theme or a Babylon 5 theme or something along those lines. This is a basic tactics RPG, but it uses... with a bit of a management element in there as well. And it uses the Power Rangers theme. And the Power Rangers theme is really, really good. And the theme dominates the whole game. And frankly, it works really, really well. Not only does it have an absolutely fantastic soundtrack backing it all up, it's got a selection of incredibly cheesy monsters. At the start of the game, most of your monsters are built out of random props. Like, the first enemy you encounter, the first boss, is like a traffic cone man who has a traffic light as his weapon. And he's wearing a traffic cone on his head. And there's one which is literally just a box with boxing gloves. And that really fits into the theme, because the whole idea is you're starting off creating your own independent Power Rangers show, and you've got no money, so of course the enemies are going to be like that. And as you gain more wealth, the enemies become more complicated, and your costumes become more complex as well. And the stakes raise higher, and the plots get better, and so on and so forth. That in itself is phenomenal. It's just a wonderful mix of the Power Rangers theme, along with this weird fourth wall breaking management game. And it's very unique. I haven't seen anything really do that before. Outside of course, Knights of Pen and Paper, which didn't do it anywhere near as well. Alright, time to rock and roll, and some fantastic music in the background. I'm just gonna let you listen to this for a bit. If you like chiptunes, this game is for you, so have a little bit of a gander. It's some really good quality music, isn't it? It's the kind of thing that you would have experienced if you'd played a lot of Sega Saturn games, I think. It's very Sega-esque. It's just the kind of era that tickles my nostalgia bones. And yes, I do have those. I'm a freak of nature like that. It's really, really nice. I mean, I like video game music, as you're probably well aware, and I do like some kinds of chiptunes, and I think this one just scratches the itch of being really high quality, really interesting pumping tunes from either the Saturn era or even in some cases some of the higher quality Super Nintendo games. Now, in terms of the aesthetic, I'm not so keen on that, but that's just more of a personal problem than anything else. I don't think the pixel art is particularly fantastic. Certainly the fights with the mecha look pretty good. But outside of that, I think that the art style is particularly basic, and I don't really get anything out of it. I mean, does it really suit the Sentai feel? Well, no. I mean, it really doesn't. There's nothing about pixel art in the whole Super Sentai, Power Rangers sort of theme. So that's maybe something that sort of sticks out like a sore thumb, but I guess it was just budget constraints, as opposed to maybe a deliberate art style choice. It's possible that they deliberately picked this art style for reasons other than that. I mean, let's be honest, their last game also used the pixel art style, but I think that made sense because it was an RPG, and you are dealing with a setting which was very similar to a mixture of a pen and paper RPG and something from a classic console era. Alright, we'll probably go back and stab him, thank you very much. There we go. Take him out. Now, there's a couple of other things that I'd like to comment on, particularly the difficulty level. Now, I've played quite a lot of tactics games in my day, and what I've noticed about this one is that it's not a very difficult one. Now, I'm playing this on normal difficulty, but there's one thing that I have noticed specifically that this game does, which is it doesn't target the weakest character. Now, it's a very common thing that they make most characters do in tactics RPGs. For a very good reason. I mean, why wouldn't you do that? It's a very effective way of ensuring that there's a degree of challenge involved with the AI. But they'll get someone down to very low health, and then they'll just ignore her or him, even if you happen to be within close proximity, and that doesn't really make a great deal of sense. I wonder if it's a deliberate design choice because you don't have a lot of units on the field. I mean, we're not playing something like Fire Emblem where you can have 12 to like 16 units on the field, and you can actively protect your other characters. There's only one healing character in this game, and your healing is on a cooldown and it's not particularly effective, so I can't imagine that you could do a great deal of healing in a game like this. I don't think you could necessarily protect as many characters as you would want to, so you'd end up having characters going down frequently. So I do think it is probably deliberate, but simultaneously it's still a little bit of a shame that that happens to be the case. I think I've only had someone die once. I may have someone die here, because Jenna's actually on 59 HP, which is not a great amount. In fact, I'm actually going to summon them out of the way, because otherwise she's probably going to die. But it wouldn't be surprising to me if the AI deliberately avoided attacking her and just ran after somebody else, because that's just what happens here. Now, I'm looking to actually finish the boss off with a finishing move, which is why I'm sort of delaying my attacks on him here. Usually because that gives you a bunch of audience points, and it also wants me to defeat the... Oh, there we go. We've actually had someone go down. That is so very, very rare. Thankfully, we do have a resurrection. I think that's the second time it's happened in 4 hours of gameplay. But yeah, more often than not, they do actually ignore the weak characters, which is unfortunate. And I think that you probably want to play this on its hardest difficulty level if you happen to be someone that has played quite a lot of tactics RPGs. I'm going to be entirely frank with you there. Alright, shall we lasso? Can we lasso him in? I think we can, and then we can whack him with the spear. There we go. This should do the trick. Good. Oh, never mind. So it is a little bit unfortunate that perhaps the tactics RPG part of the game is maybe not the best component of it, considering you're going to be spending a great deal of time in it. But I think that the game is more than the sum of its parts. If you just looked at the RPG combat, you'd probably say, yeah, okay, it's alright, but it's not incredible. But it's not just that. Like, to call the game just a tactics RPG would be unfair. It does have that management element, and it's a good management element. It's very thematic. The idea of buying parts for your studio is really amusing to me. I like it a great deal. And there's just these little details, like the camera crew in the background and things like that, and the fact that a lot of the sets are very improvised. That's absolutely phenomenal. And it's the theme that carries it. If this was not a Power Rangers RPG, I think that the game would be significantly less fun to play. But it is a Power Rangers RPG, and as a direct result, it does provide a very different theme and very different ideas. Can I actually finish him off? I think I'm actually going to screw this up, but I want to try and finish him off before my characters die. There we go. I didn't actually fulfill any of the director's instructions there, but never mind. It's fine. Just for demo purposes anyway. So, if you're into that idea of having a management game with a bit of fourth wall breaking, managing your studio and getting marketing deals, and then also going into Power Rangers style combat for some inexplicable reason, and dealing with like nice little details like people emailing you fan fiction and all that sort of thing, then you can immerse yourself in the theme and you can really enjoy it. And you might even enjoy the corny dialogue if you were into these kind of shows as a kid. That's the strength of the game right there. Not that it's an incredible tactical RPG, because it's not. Not that it's got an extremely in-depth management system, because it hasn't. Not that it has a really amazing crafting system, because it doesn't. All of those things are functional. And then it's the Power Rangers theme that carries it over the top and makes it truly worth playing, as far as I'm concerned. That's what makes it unique. And that, as far as I'm concerned, is a good enough reason to strongly consider it. The game's got a good amount of gameplay. I'm on Season 3 out of 4 after about 4 hours. So you could probably finish this game in maybe 5 or 6. There is some replayability there as well. Not a huge amount, but it is there because of the level of customization that you happen to have. And it would be nice if there was a big New Game Plus mode. There isn't. So hopefully that's something that they end up adding in a future patch. But I'm certainly enjoying my time with this game so far. I don't have that many complaints. There's a few things like, say, UI issues and the fact that you can't save in the middle of a mission. I don't know why they didn't let you do that, considering that missions are actually quite long at times, so it would be nice to be able to save. The settings menu is basic, to say the least. At least you can actually change the difficulty level, although you have to actually restart in order to do that. I mean, you've just got resolution option, full screen on and off, music and audio, and that really is about it. It is a 2D pixel art game, so you don't need too much, but it would be nice to maybe have hotkeys, for instance, but the entire game is completely mouse-driven, so you're not able to do that. No controller, if you just happen to prefer, for some reason, using a controller, you can't really do that here either. So it's a little bit bare bones in that respect, and there are those quality of life changes to the UI and the menus that I would like to see that I mentioned earlier, such as merging things like the shop and the equipment screen together. It would make things a lot easier when it comes to managing the equipment of your heroes and things like that. But outside of those complaints, it's been a pretty enjoyable ride up to this point. I'm looking forward to seeing what happens next. Not to say that's not confusing, because it is. I can't really tell half the time whether or not the game is deliberately breaking the fourth wall, or whether or not there's actually an alien invasion going on in some way. It's a little bit weird. It makes me think that later on in the game you'll discover you're actually real Power Rangers all along. But it's really hard to say. I can't tell, because the game is just so flippant when it comes to when it decides to use the fourth wall and break it and when it doesn't. And I can't tell half the time. Maybe that's a weakness in the storytelling. Maybe that's something they need to work on if they want to do this. Is that this is now the second game that they've done this with. If this is going to become a common theme for this studio, it might be something they want to work on. But it's not a big deal. You know, I've never really cared too much about the actual storytelling of a game like this in the first place, so I'm not particularly worried. There's one last thing I want to cover, and I can't show it to you right now because you can't go back to previous episodes. The game doesn't have multiple saved files, so it looks like there's not going to be a Mecha Fight on this episode, which is a bit unfortunate. But there's not really a lot to explain about it. The Mecha Fights are a very basic minigame, which is essentially a push-your-luck style of setup, whereby you are shown against the giant monster, and you click attack, and the more times you attack, the less hit chance you have, but the higher your damage combo gets. As soon as you miss, the enemy gets to do the same to you. So you push your luck a little bit, and then you might want to maybe try and set your defense up before you end up missing your last attack. just to make sure you don't take too much damage when the monster counterattacks. You can combo up to a finishing move, and there's also this little defense minigame whereby you have to click the arrow in the right spot in order to increase your defense against the enemy's attacks. That is really about it outside of the equipment customization, so there's really not a great deal to cover when it comes to the way that the mecha system works. It would be nice to see that fleshed out a little bit more than it is. As it stands, it's functional. It's a shame that there's maybe not a little bit more to it, but they're these little boss fights that you get every now and again. They're not actually a prominent part of the game, which is maybe what some people might be disappointed by. But there you go, folks. Chroma Squad. Available on Axiom Esports sponsor GOG.com, as well as on Steam for $15 or your regional equivalent. My name's been TotalBiscuit. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you next time.